Hello, everybody, and welcome into the newest episode of the Missing Piece podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening in, and we got a boatload of stuff for you guys to talk about today. So, we'll start off the day with NFL free agency. The Colts were actually big spenders in free agency. We'll get into the signings they had, the departures that they had, and we'll get into what this team now looks like, what needs that they need going into the draft here in about a month. And we'll go over the bracket coming out today, the NCAA tournament bracket coming out today. So a big omission from it, and we'll go over each matchup in the first round, and we'll fill out a bracket together. So I say we go ahead and get this party started here. So, obviously the big news was NFL free agency, which I mentioned last week. The Colts, I didn't expect them to do much of anything those first couple of days of free agency. But boy, was I wrong. Chris Ballard really stuck to his mantra and has really changed his ways, and he spent big in free agency this year. So his first signing was with Camryn Bynum, which was for, hold on. 4 years, $60 million, $30 million of it guaranteed. So, Camryn Bynum, if you guys don't know, is a very good free safety that is starting. That is going to be your new starter at free safety with the Colts. If you guys know him, he's the one that does like all those celebrations and stuff after they get turnovers. But you know, it's paying all that money to Camryn Bynum, who's a really good safety and does not miss games. He's played a bunch of games for the Vikings and has not missed a whole lot. So, getting a guy who's probably going to stay healthy and who comes from a winning culture in Minnesota would be a really good addition to this secondary. And speaking of another addition to the secondary, they signed, arguably the best, cornerback in this free agent class, and that's Charvarius Ward from the 49ers. So, the Colts got him for, 3 years, I believe, was the years on it, and it was for about $60 million, I believe, around that ballpark. Hold on, let me make sure that I get it right. So yeah, it's 3 years, $54,000. You know, paying all that much to a corner, which is not generally what I would do, but the need that this team had in the secondary was so big that they had to go all in and sign Charvarius Ward at corner, who's going to be undoubtedly your number one corner on the outside. And he'll be matching up with Nico Collins twice a year. He'll be going up against Brian Thomas Jr. twice a year. He'll be going up against, you know, whoever the Colts are facing, their best wide receiver. That's who Charvarius Ward is going to be guarding. So, the Colts have not had that level of corner since Vontae Davis was here. So, Charvarius is a very good corner. He was a Pro Bowler a couple of years ago, all-pro corner, and it was just a great get by the Colts. And upgrade this secondary now has been a massive upgrade now, because now you have Camryn Bynum, and you got Nick Cross at safety now, and then at corner you got Charvarius Ward, you got Kenny Moore now in the nickel, and then now at that second corner spot you can have an all-out competition. So you can tell Juju Brents, hey, you got to stay healthy. If you want to start, you need to stay healthy and prove it. Jalen Jones, you got to play better to be starting. Samuel Womack, same thing for you. They signed another corner in Corey Ballantyne, who's more of a special teams guy, but I'd imagine he'll be part of that that competition at that second corner spot as well. So it's going to be an all-out brawl in the for that second corner spot with the Colts. So this secondary is going to be a lot better, and I'm so happy that they upgraded it. Some other signings that they did, They brought in the quarterback for the competition, and it's the guy who we kind of figured it was going to be, in Daniel Jones, on a 1-year, $14 million deal. So, as far as that quarterback competition goes, I don't think it's going to really be much of a competition. I think it's more of going to be Anthony versus Anthony. And what I mean by that is, I don't think Daniel Jones is going to beat Anthony outright. I think Anthony's going to have to kind of beat himself. And, if he shows up, he plays a lot better than he did last year. I mean, he's training with Josh Allen, so that's the kind of jump that you need if you're Anthony Richardson, is you need that Josh Allen jump that he had in between, like, years 2 and 3. That's the exact jump that Anthony Richardson's going to have. His completion percentage has got to go up. He can't be injured anymore. He's got to be available. But, basically, this is Anthony's job to lose. I mean, I think the Colts want Anthony to win this competition. I mean, Anthony gives you the more upside. He's only 22. He gives you more upside on this offense. He's already athletic and everything. He just needs to be more accurate with the ball. He needs to get that completion percentage up, and he needs to be more healthy. And if he doesn't work on those 3 things, and he shows up to training camp and he has not improved all that much, I think you could see the Colts team saying, you know what, I think Daniel Jones gives us a better chance at winning these games, and we'll go with Daniel Jones. But I think it's going to be Anthony's job to lose. I think Anthony's got to do everything he can to be better next year, whether it's with accuracy or all that. So, we'll see how and it's going to be pretty clear right from the get-go. I mean, look at back when Anthony was competing with Gardner Minshew. It was pretty obvious that Anthony was going to win it within the first couple of weeks. I think it'll be that obvious again this time. It'll be within the first couple of weeks, you'll see if Anthony has improved or not. And if he hasn't, then they'll go with Daniel. And if he has, I think they'll stick with Anthony. But we'll see. We'll see once training camp starts in the summer. But that's going to be the competition, Richardson versus Daniel Jones at quarterback. Some other signings they had, I mentioned Corey Ballentine. They got a backup running back in Khalil Herbert, who was coming over from the Bengals, and then he started out his career with the Bears. He got traded to Cincinnati, and then now he's coming to Indy. So Khalil Herbert is definitely an upgrade at running back 2 over Trey Sermon. So that's going to be a relief to know that if Jonathan gets hurt again, you still have a capable running back in Khalil Herbert that can handle that amount, and you can still be able to run the football. They signed Neville Gallimore at defensive tackle. So you cut Raekwon Davis. You kind of needed another body in there at defensive tackle. So getting Neville Gallimore was a good choice. Young guy, I think he's 28. So, I believe, and then they re-signed Ashton Dulin, obviously, because Ashton Dulin has a role on this team. He's the special team guy that's gonna play special teams for you and play wide receiver in the pinch if you need him to. So obviously they brought Ashton Dulin back, and then they brought back Danny Pinter, and they brought back Wesley French. And the reason they brought those guys back is because we'll get into now the free agents they lost. So we'll start on the offensive line. Both Ryan Kelly and Will Fries are gone. The evil Minnesota Vikings stole both of them, and they're heading up to Minnesota now. So I think the pipeline between the Vikings and Colts was pretty funny this year, because you got Daniel Jones coming from the Vikings, and you got Cameron Bynum coming from the Vikings. And then the Vikings signed Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. So, offensive line, I think, is going to be a big issue, and we'll get into that in a minute. But you lost 2 starters on the offensive line. You lost Dayo Odeyingbo. He went up to Chicago on a $16 million a year contract, which I kind of figured that Dayo was going to get paid that much. I just didn't know who it was going to be, and it turned out to be the Chicago Bears. So, Dio hadn't. I think that was not. I don't think the Colts were going to re-sign Dio on that expensive of a contract. I mean, the sack numbers weren't there, and he was just a rotation piece. I think the reason why he got that money was because he's a young, ascending player, like a Cam Bynum is, and you're paying him for what he could be, not for what he is now. So, the Bears obviously think that they can get the best out of Dio Odangbo, and I think they can, because Dennis Allen is their defensive coordinator. So you got a really good defensive coordinator in Chicago that will try and get the best out of Dio Odangbo. So, good for Dio going to Chicago. Grant Stewart is going to Detroit. He signed up with the Lions. And then Kylan Granson, he's leaving. He's going to Philadelphia. So you had a lot of Colts players that are gone now. It's going to be a different team this year because a lot of old faces are gone and you're getting a lot of new faces coming in. So obviously the secondary was improved upon. You got your quarterback competition. You got a backup running back now. You got defensive tackle depth. So we'll move on to what this team kind of needs going into the draft. So I think the obvious one right now is tight end. I think the Colts have kind of pegged themselves into taking a tight end very early in April, whether it's Tyler Warren, whether it's Colston Loveland, or whether it's Mason Taylor round 2. They're taking a tight end pretty early in this draft. Because right now, the only tight ends that you have on this roster right now are Drew Ogletree, which I believe he's going to factor in when we get towards the season, Jelani Woods, who can't stay healthy, and Will Mallory, which you don't really know what you have in Will Mallory right now. So those are the only 3 tight ends on this roster currently that you have. So tight end is going to be a really big one. I expect them to take a tight end pretty early in April. I could see Chris Ballard move up in the draft to take Tyler Warren. So, but we'll see. I do think tight end's a big need. I mentioned offensive line. You just lost 2 starters on the offensive line with Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. Obviously, Tanner Bordolini and Matt Gonzalez are going to take over, and they'll have bigger roles this year. But I think Chris Ballard's going to take an offensive lineman in this draft, whether it comes early or in the middle, I don't know. But you can expect an offensive lineman to be taken by the Colts. And we'll get into some prospects that we like for offensive line when we get closer to the draft. Defensive line, I believe, is an issue too. You look at defensive end. The only one that's actually locked up long term right now is Laiatu Latu. Samson Ebukam's coming off an injury and he's coming into his last year of his deal. Kwity Paye, his contract is up after this year. Taekwon Lewis's contract, I believe, is coming up this year or next year. So those are 3 edges that you have that are really coming up. So edge rusher they might take an edge rusher again round 1. I know Shamar Stewart, Chris Ballard would love Shamar Stewart, but we'll get into some edge guys. Defensive tackle, even with Neville Gallimore signing, I still think they should take a defensive tackle because you got your 2 starters, Buckner and Stewart, are both north of 30, and they're not going to be around for much longer, so you got to start thinking about life after Buckner and Stewart. So, and it's a really good defensive tackle class this year. So we'll get into some defensive tackle prospects that we like as well. And linebacker. Linebacker's a big one. Obviously, they haven't re-signed EJ Speed. I don't think they're going to re-sign EJ Speed. You have Jalen Carlisle's on this roster right now, currently, but you just lost Grant Stewart, and you're probably not bringing EJ Speed back. So those are 2 linebackers that were on this team last year that are not going to be here. So expect the Colts to take a linebacker. I'd probably say maybe you take a Jihad Campbell round 1, but maybe you take one day 2, and we'll get into some linebackers that I like as well. But linebacker is going to be another big one. So those are the 4 big needs on this Colts team that I think they're going to take in the draft pretty early. Tight end, offensive line, defensive line, whether it's defensive end or defensive tackle, and linebacker. So, that's the state of this Colts team. We'll hit on the Pacers really quick. Tyrese had that incredible game-winning 4-point play against the Bucks last week. They beat the 76ers Friday night, and then they lost to Milwaukee yesterday. And then they lost the season series to Milwaukee 3-1, so that does not help the Pacers in their standings. Right now, they are at 5. Milwaukee's at 4, so as it stands currently, they're going to have a better record than Milwaukee to be the 4 seed. Milwaukee plays Oklahoma City tonight, so Pacers fans, you got to cheer for the Thunder tonight, so Milwaukee can lose. Let's see here. Fever season's coming up. I think we'll get into the bracket here. So, kind of a bummer that IU did not make it in. They were the second team out, so, which stinks. But we'll get into the bracket here, and we will go through it together. So, let's load it up here. Hold on. All right. So, we are going to see. So, the first 4 games you're going to have. Oh, whoops, that's from last year. My bad. Okay. So, the first game we'll talk about is Auburn versus Alabama State and St. Francis, which is going to be in Lexington, Kentucky. Auburn's going to win that game. I don't think Alabama State or St. Francis is good enough to be able to beat a very talented Auburn team. So give me the Tigers. Louisville and Creighton in Lexington. So Louisville, that's going to be a very, very, that's going to be like a home game for Louisville. Like, you don't have to drive far from Lexington from Louisville to Lexington, so, and they're playing the Creighton Blue Jays. Give me Louisville in that matchup. I like Louisville. That's going to be basically a home game for Louisville. So I like Louisville to get to round 2 and play Auburn. This one's going to be a really tight one. Michigan, UC San Diego as the 12 seed. So UC San Diego, if you guys don't know the Tritons, man, this is a really, really tough team. So, the way UC San Diego, the Tritons play, they are a very good defensive team. They will force you to turn the ball over. So, their team leaders, per points per game, they have Anawania Ty Jones, which I'm horrible with names, so if I got his name wrong, I'm horrible with names. He's their guard. He leads them in points per game at 19.5, field goal percentage, which is 57.6, and assists per game, which is 3.7. Their team stats, they average 79.8 points per game. They average close to 16 assists per game. Rebounds a game, they average 34, and points allowed, they only give up like 61.5. They are extremely good on defense. They will turn you over. They play really good defense, and they're very good on offense. They are very good at shooting the ball. So if you're Michigan, you got a really rough draw with UC San Diego. That's not going to be an easy win for Michigan. I actually like UC San Diego in this game to beat Michigan, and with an upset over 5-12, and then the 4-13 I think is going to be another upset because you got Texas A&M and Yale. The Yale Bulldogs are a really good team. I love Texas A&M coming out of the SEC, but Yale is a really good team, and that's a really tough game for Texas A&M, who has struggled as of late. So give me the Yale Bulldogs. So that's going to be an upset for 12-13 in round 2. Ole Miss, San Diego State, North Carolina. I do think North Carolina wins that game. Ole Miss, North Carolina. That's going to be a really good game. Give me North Carolina in that game. And then Iowa State, Lipscomb. Give me Iowa State. Marquette in New Mexico at the 7 and 10. That's going to be a really good game. You got Cam Jones at guard for Marquette, and then New Mexico also has a really good guard hold on, give me a second. Donovan Dent. So this is going to be a really good game between Marquette and New Mexico. It's in Cleveland, so it'll be more of a Marquette crowd. I like Marquette in this game, but whoever wins this game is probably going to lose to Michigan State round 2. So, I'll take Marquette, but they probably won't get past the second round because they'll probably get Michigan State, who plays Bryant, in the first round. So give me Michigan State in that one. So I have Auburn and Louisville, and that would be a really good game for Auburn. I think Louisville can give Auburn some trouble. Give me Auburn, but that's going to be really close. I like Auburn defensively and offensively, but that's going to be a really close game because that's effectively going to be a home game for Louisville. So, but give me Auburn, and then UC San Diego and Yale. Give me the Tritons. Give me UC San Diego. I really like the Tritons a lot. They're a really good team. Give me the Tritons to make the Sweet 16, and they're going to be my Cinderella for this year. North Carolina, Iowa State. Iowa State just got news that one of their star players is hurt, and they go up against North Carolina, who's kind of figured it out as of late. Give me Iowa State that game in a close game with North Carolina. And then Michigan State, Marquette. Give me Michigan State. Michigan State's a really good team. And then so you would have Auburn and UC San Diego. I think the Tritons' magical run ends in the Sweet 16. Give me Auburn. And then Michigan State, Iowa State. Give me Michigan State. I don't think the Cyclones, without one of their star players, can beat Michigan State. And then Auburn and Michigan State. That's going to be a really tough one. Give me Michigan State over Auburn. Auburn's played down to SEC opponents like Texas A&M and Florida and all that. So give me Michigan State to make the Final Four. In the East region, we have Duke in the winner of American and Mount St. Mary's. Whoever wins that game as a 16, they're going to lose to Duke. So give me Duke to win that one. Mississippi State and Baylor. That's going to be a close. Mississippi State's a very good offensive team. Mississippi State can really score the basketball. And then Baylor's got VJ Edgecombe on their team. Give me the Bulldogs of Mississippi State to win that one, although it's going to be pretty close. So Duke and Mississippi State in round 2. In Raleigh, North Carolina. And then in Seattle, you have Oregon and Liberty. So if you're Liberty is a very good team. They can score the basketball really well. The problem is for Liberty, you got a rough matchup in Oregon, and Oregon's a really good team. Give me Oregon to win that one. And then Arizona and Akron. Akron's been on a roll lately. And Akron plays at a very fast pace. And Arizona has a tendency to get upset. Give me Arizona, but that's going to be a really tough one. This one's going to be very interesting. BYU and VCU. So you got a very offensive-oriented team in BYU going up against a very defensive-minded team in VCU. So you got two completely different teams in BYU and VCU. See, that one's really tough. Man, that's a coin toss for me, because that's going to be really tough. Give me BYU, but that's going to be really close. And then Wisconsin, Montana. I think Wisconsin should win that one against Montana pretty easily. St. Mary's and Vanderbilt, that's going to be a really good team. You got the Commodores and the Gales. Give me St. Mary's, because that's going to be... St. Mary's has more experience on their team than Vanderbilt does. Vanderbilt hasn't been in the tournament in a while. Yeah, that's going to be a close one. Give me St. Mary's. And then Alabama, Robert Morris. Give me Alabama. So you have Duke. So we'll go back up here in the second round. Duke, Mississippi State. Give me Duke. Duke's just a really good team. I think Duke's a really good team. Mississippi State won't be able to keep up with them. Give me Duke. Oregon and Arizona. Again, I trust the Ducks. I really like Oregon. Give me Oregon to make the Sweet 16 and face Duke. BYU, Wisconsin. That's going to be a really good game. I think if you're Wisconsin, you're going to have to score a lot of points if you're Wisconsin. Give me Wisconsin in that game, but that's going to be really close. And then Alabama, St. Mary's, give me Alabama. Duke, Oregon, that's going to be a really good game. I think Oregon can give Duke a run for their money. I think if you're Duke, that's probably going to be the toughest challenge that you're going to have is Oregon. Give me Duke in that one in a really close game. And then Alabama, Wisconsin. Give me Alabama. And then have Duke make the Final Four. So I have Michigan State and Duke as two of my Final Four teams. So we'll go down here to the Midwest region, which is going to be in Indianapolis. So you got Houston and you got Southern Indiana University, Edwardsville. Give me Houston in the first round. This is going to be a really good game because you got two really good teams in Gonzaga and Georgia. Gonzaga's coming off winning the West Coast Conference. They beat St. Mary's in that game. And Georgia is having a really good season in a tough SEC this year, which had 14 teams make it. So I think either team could win this game and either team can beat Houston in round 2. Give me Gonzaga, but that's going to be just because Gonzaga's had a lot more experience than Georgia has, but that's going to be a good game. So Houston and Gonzaga in round 2. Clemson and McNeese. I like McNeese, but that's a rough draw if you're McNeese playing Clemson. Give me the Tigers to advance. And then you have the one team you have Purdue. Purdue's playing a really, really dangerous High Point team. So I'm telling you, Purdue fans, High Point is a very good team. They can really score the basketball. And I'll show you their stats, but they score the basketball in bunches with Keza Giffa at guard, who averages 14.8 points per game. But look at these stats. They average 82 points per game, and they only allow 68 points per game. They can score the ball at a very high rate. And if you're Purdue, if you're not careful against High Point can get you. So if you're Purdue and you are not on your A game against High Point can get you. And I like High Point to beat Purdue in the first round. I hate to say it, but High Point is a really good team. They're very good offensively, and I think High Point gets the win over Purdue. Illinois and the winner of Texas and Xavier in Milwaukee. So for this one, Texas and Xavier. That's going to be a really good game in the first round. So if you're Illinois, both of those teams are going to be really tough no matter who you get to play. Because Texas has Trey Johnson, who's going to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft, and Xavier can really score the basketball. So if you're Illinois, you're going to have to be on your A game that game. Give me Illinois, but that's going to be really tough. And then Kentucky and Troy, give me Kentucky. UCLA, Utah State, that's going to be another really good game between UCLA and Utah State. I think it comes down to, if you're UCLA, you got to put up points on this Utah State team. Give me Utah State over UCLA. That's going to be a really close one, though. And then Tennessee, Wofford, give me Tennessee. So Houston and Gonzaga. Again, I like Gonzaga. Gonzaga's been on a hot streak, so give me Gonzaga over Houston, and I have the 8 seed moving on over the 1. Clemson and High Point. Again, High Point can really score it, but Clemson's also a really good team. And Clemson's a better built team than Purdue is currently at this point, so give me Clemson. Illinois and Kentucky. Give me Kentucky. And then Utah State, Tennessee, give me Tennessee. So you got an SEC matchup in here. Gonzaga, Clemson. That's going to be a really tough one. Give me Clemson in that one, but that's going to be a really close one. And then Kentucky, Tennessee, give me Tennessee. And then Tennessee in the Final Four. So I've got 2 2s and a 1. And then over here in the West region, you got a red-hot Florida team going up against Norfolk State. Give me Florida, but Florida's a red-hot team right now. They'll be facing the winner of UConn and Oklahoma. I think UConn will win that game and move on to the second round, obviously, because UConn's back-to-back champs. Memphis, Colorado State. That's going to be a really good one. Memphis has PJ Haggerty, who's a really good point guard. Give me Memphis, man. That's going to be a really good game. But give me Memphis to move on. And speaking of really good games, Maryland and Grand Canyon. That's going to be a really good game between those two. Maryland's got Derek Queen. And all of Maryland's starters average double digits in points. So if it was any other 4 seed, I would like Grand Canyon, but give me Maryland to beat Grand Canyon. And then Missouri and Drake. I like Drake in that matchup. Give me Drake. Texas Tech, University of North Carolina, Wilmington. Give me the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Kansas and Arkansas. Give me Arkansas. Kansas is kind of struggling right now. And then you got the Johnnies as the 2 in Omaha. Give me St. John's. Round 2, you got Florida, UConn. This is where I think UConn's magical run for a 3rd straight title ends. I think Florida is too talented and gets them in the second round. I have Memphis and Maryland. I do like Maryland. I really do. But Memphis can get really streaky. It depends on what Memphis team shows up. If this streaky Memphis team shows up, I think Memphis could beat Maryland. Give me Maryland, but that's going to be... If that streaky Memphis team shows up, man, I like Memphis in that one, but give me Maryland. Drake and Texas Tech. Give me Texas Tech. Texas Tech is really good defensively, and JT Toppin's playing out of his mind right now. So give me the Red Raiders. And then Arkansas and St. John's. Give me St. John's. That's going to set up a really physical defensive matchup in the Sweet 16, which we'll get to in a minute. So Florida, Maryland. Give me Florida in that game to move on. Like I said, Florida's on a red-hot streak right now. So give me Florida. And then Texas Tech, St. John's. That is going to be a fantastic game. That is going to be a defensive slugfest. Because you got 2 really good defensive teams. It'll come down to who can step up. Will it be R.J. Lewis for St. John's? Or will it be J.T. Toppin for Texas Tech? I like Texas Tech in that matchup. I think Texas Tech has had been more battle tested. The Big East wasn't that good this year. for St. John's, so give me... I like St. John's. I think they'll make a magical run to the Sweet 16. But give me the Red Raiders to beat St. John's, and then give me Florida to get to the Final Four. So I have Michigan State, Florida, and I have Duke, Tennessee. Give me Michigan State and Duke, and give me Duke to win it all. That's just what I think. We'll see how that goes with the tournament, but I don't know. It just stinks that IU's not in it. Let me see. I believe IU's going to be in the NIT tournament, so let me see if they've announced that yet. Yeah, they're not going to. They said IU's not going to play in the NIT, so IU is done. So the tenure for Mike Woodson is over in IU, so that stinks. That I believe the IU was the second team out, so they're not going to play in the NIT, which stinks. But what are you going to do? It sucks that IU didn't get in. I wish they would have gotten in, but that's what it is. So thank you guys for listening in. Let me know what you guys think of the brackets, and I will catch you guys later.